Okay, so let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed and I have Donna and we're from the Azure App Service team. And today we'll give you a quick overview about how to manage your app service resources using command line tools. And by command line tools, mainly CLI. So how many here are familiar with app service? Okay, good. So app service is a family of products and services. We have web apps, whether Windows or Linux. We have web app for containers, where you can bring your own containers and your own custom containers and run it in the cloud. There's functions, where a serverless event-based experience to your apps. And there's also app service environments, where you can have your own isolated environment of app service. You get all the nice things that you get for the multi-tenant and the public cloud app service, and in isolated, you can put it into your VNet and so on. For this presentation, we'll focus on web apps, web app for containers, and functions. That said, we're actually working on a CLI, actually not CLI, PowerShell experience for app service environments that will be coming soon. So, quick overview about how big is the service. So we have almost more than 450,000 customers, more than 1 million apps hosted on our platform. We're already more than 19 billion hits a day, and we're actually over 450,000 dedicated cores. Year over year, we're almost 2x traffic growth and almost 1.3x number of customers. So again, we'll focus mainly on CLI. So CLI 2.0 is open source. You can, it's Python based and it's cross-platform. So I'll show it from Windows subsystem for Linux on my Windows machine, and Donna will actually work on her Mac machine. So that said, well, let's get into demos.
And we welcome participation in the demos in terms of what you want to see and if you have questions. And if you ask a question, we will throw you a ball.
Football.
And we have all kinds of great swag. So this is not a huge session, so let's keep it friendly and informal.
Yeah. So I already created a resource group, and first order of business is to create an app service plan to host all my apps in it. So AZ app service and plan, create, and then I'll just give it a name, and I think I called it, my cheat sheet. Right.
Now the other cool thing about this is that now, well, he's making up a name, so he has to look at his cheat sheet for, so he doesn't conflict with his existing names. But for other names, you can use tab completion, and so you can see what other resources you have available. So if you already have a resource group named Ignite, you can just tab complete and get through and get very efficient.
Yeah, and for this one, I'll actually use the Premium V2 that we just GA'd yesterday. So P1 V2, and basically we'll provision VMs for you. The default is 1 VM, 1 worker, and this one is a small, so 1 core.
And again, you don't have to know that that's what Premium V2 is called. If you tab complete, you'll see it listed.
Exactly.
Now this will just take a few minutes because it's provisioning an actual app service plan. It's provisioning the compute.
Okay. That's after that, I'll just create an app.
Now you notice here the output is in JSON. That's the default, so that you can easily pipe the output of one command to another. You can also change that to be more human readable with a table view or commas and that kind of thing. It's very extensible. And it's really designed to write scripts where you have a bunch of commands and the output of one goes to the input of another. So it's a much easier way to script your resources versus writing an Azure Resource Manager template directly. And of course, you could run all these same commands in the portal with the console, with the new Azure Cloud Console.
Okay, so I'll just create a Windows app. And basically, this one will provision a storage account, well, storage SMB share for your app so that basically you can go and push all your code to. And it will take a few seconds. After that, I'll basically configure it. Actually, before that, this is my production site. If I want to push a lot of changes, our recipe to success is go create a slot. So I'll go create a slot for this one.
Is everyone familiar with app service deployment slots? Raise your hand if you've used the feature before. Okay, so some of you haven't used it. Let's talk about it. So the way it works is that when you have code changes and you want to deploy them to production, there's a few considerations. First off, if you have changes to your running service, you don't want to, in the middle of a service that's a site that's processing traffic, you don't want to be changing the code, and so customers see unavailability or 500 error. The other thing is that you want to test your changes and make sure that everything is correct before you swap over. And because app service and just generally cloud services in general give you a virtual IP address, what we can do in our front end is swap it from one actual machine to another. So what you can do is to create a slot. You can create up to 5 on a standard plan and up to 20, depending on what SKU you pick. And so you can have dev, test, production, all that kind of stuff. They share compute resources, so you're not paying extra for that deployment slot. And then just with a command line parameter or in the Azure portal, you click a button, and once you're happy with your code in the deployment slot, it'll swap over. And so what that does two things. First, it changes the virtual IP address, and also it will change your app settings. So if you have some stage database connection strings and that kind of thing, it'll swap that over. You can even warm up your slot so that it's actually getting some traffic. Your database connection's already set up, so that swap is seamless. The next hit that comes in is going to be just as fast as the previous one.
Yeah, so we already created the slot, and right now I'll configure it to GitHub repo that I already have. It's very simple, ASP.NET app. So I'll just use the deployment config command, and I'll just push that to my stage. So our Kudu, or our source control management site right now, will go create, first of all, authenticate me to GitHub. I already did that before. And it will go create a webhook into that repo and basically start downloading it and deploying it to my app. So the idea is, when it creates the webhook, whenever I do a change, it will automatically pull these changes, and a new version will be available to me almost instantly.
And basically, the reason you need to authenticate through to GitHub is because it's creating that webhook, which requires permissions to that repo. But this is a very lightweight way to get a build working on your machine. You don't have to set up a build server. You don't have to set up VSTS. Of course, you can set up VSTS and all those things, but you don't have to just to get up and running.
Yeah, so this is my main site. Right now, you can see it's just the default hosting.html that we provide. And then my staging site, again, right now, we're still downloading the codes, or my repo, and basically,
so it'll take a second.
Here it is.
Yeah.
So
another thing that you can do on a website, if you don't know about this feature, is you can turn on always on, which is going to ping your site continuously, which is great for low traffic sites, so that the site is always warm.
Yep.
And of course, since this was the first request, it took a little bit longer.
Exactly.
The next request will be very fast.
Exactly. So I'll just go change something on this page, and
You have to look at it.
I'll just
So yeah, basically we're doing the easiest possible edit that we could do, which is to just go directly into GitHub, commit directly. We don't recommend that you do this in a real site. Of course, you should probably use a real editor, but this is just HTML. So hopefully it's safe, but it doesn't matter if it's not safe because we're deploying to a stage environment first, so we can see if it looks right.
Exactly. So right now I already changed my GitHub repo, and we'll give it a couple of seconds, and if that works, that's actually should
And if we
work.
wanted to check the progress, we could go into the Azure portal and see
Yeah.
if it's building or not. The build is usually pretty quick.
Exactly. So you can see, like in a matter of seconds, I did the change, Kudu deployed my new change, and all that from CLI.
And of course, everything we're showing here, if you're not familiar with some of these features, everything that we're showing here can obviously be done through the portal. The thing that's new is that now more and more of it is scriptable, and our goal is that whenever there's a feature in the portal, you can write some scripting for it. So if this seems more complicated than what you'd like, don't worry, you can always go to the portal mechanism.
Yeah, so right now my production site has the old version, my staging site has the new version, so I'm ready actually to go to production with my new version, so I'll just do a swap. So AZ web app, deployment, slot swap, and I'll just do my
and of course here you could imagine a script, a larger script where you're actually doing load testing or performance testing or just behavioral testing. And if it passes, then you're going to swap. So most likely you're not going to directly be swapping from a command line parameter, but usually in a script.
Okay. And I'll just say I'll swap with stage.
Yep.
And the default is always to swap with production, but you can also specify which specific slot you want that. So if you always want to know like what is the right command, just stick a -h at the end, and it will give you all the help and all the parameters that you need.
And you can also tab complete, and it'll suggest different properties and the values for them. It's really easy to use.
Yep. And as Donna said, it's basically right now we're swapping the DNS records between the staging and the production so that my site was already warmed up. And if I refresh this guy, done. That's the production. And again, just to make sure, my staging actually have my production site.
Right.
So if I did any problem, I can actually go swap again, and quickly I go back to my old version.
Right. So it's a very easy way to switch back and forth, and you can roll back right away. Mm-hmm. You can even set up Traffic Manager and Test in Production to set some of your traffic to the old site, some to the new site.
And actually, that's what we're going to do right now.
Oh, awesome, perfect.
So right now I have two versions, and what I want to say is like, want to tell the platform 50% of my traffic goes to the production site and 50% goes to the stage. So I can do that using AZ web app, and then we have a traffic routing command, and I'll set that, again, the name of the app, resource group.
There's also a command to set the default resource group. But we're basically not taking any shortcuts here so that you can see all of the parameters that are required.
Yeah, and using the -d parameter, basically you can specify the distribution, and if you have more than one staging environment or slot, you can actually do space-separated value pair.
So does that mean we can use this to do A/B testing if we have multiple versions
exactly.
of the application?
Yep.
Awesome.
So basically, this one will just do 50% of the traffic to the production, 50% to the staging slot, but
now, what happens if I'm using a client and I refresh the page? Am I going to keep seeing a different page each time I refresh?
It really depends on the session. So
right. So do we use a cookie to pin that?
Yes. So we have the ARR affinity.
Yes. So the experience you'll have for your customers will be consistent. Yeah. So like, for instance, Amazon constantly rolls out new shopping cart designs, and they use a cookie so that you don't go buy one thing one day or in one session, an hour later buy something again and see a completely different shopping cart experience. And so we do that same thing here.
Exactly. So let's assume that when I rolled over my production, I saw that my app actually is behaving sluggishly, and I want to change this queue. So that could easily be done using AZ App Service and plan.
Or the other way, you're paying too much and you're like, I don't need this much compute.
Exactly, but my subscription is free and I can do whatever I want with it.
That's true.
I'll go with the biggest thing possible. So
well, it's free for us because someone else is paying the bills.
Exactly. ASP, and then I can go to SKU.
Now, the other really awesome thing about the SKU update, when I first joined App Service, this is the thing I loved about it, is that it happens right away. Because what we do is we don't actually change the machine you're on, we just put you on a bigger machine. And so from a user perspective, it takes like seconds. It's not like you're actually resizing anything in place.
I forgot the resource group.
Right, so we get nice help here. And if we had done tab completion, we would have seen that option as well.
Yep.
So now we want 3 workers instead of 1.
Yes, and also I went to the large PV2, premium V2 machines.
So the question is, won't that restart the application? The answer is yes, it will.
Yep. So you will see a cold start to your application, and yep.
Now, if you have any pending requests, the request will finish. It's not that it will just cut off that request,
Exactly.
But the new request will go to the thing, and so you'll see it's the same as when we deployed new code. We saw the slight delay. The same kind of thing is going to happen.
Yep. That's right.
And so that's why we saw 404, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, I have my application. I want to see like what are the different logging that's happening there. So I'll enable a couple of logging parameters, and then basically we'll go and see the logs coming back from the application itself.
So I have a question, Ahmed. What if I had 3 workers and I wanted to add one more of the same size? I wouldn't have any downtime, would I?
No, you
There
will
you
not.
go.
You will not. So we'll basically, whenever there's a new request, we'll warm up the other instance without even having any downtime on
Right.
the other ones.
So in this case, the reason we saw that downtime is because we actually switched worker sizes. So you probably don't want to do that in production. You probably want to just add instances.
Come on. G. And then I'll just do the level verbose. And I'll just do web server logging.
So basically, we can think of this as the most minimal or the most basic level of logging we could do. If we wanted
Exactly.
richer logging, we could use application insights. But this is just to see, did the site start, did it stop, and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But for real full end-to-end application logging, you'd probably want to use application insights.
So what I'm going to do right now is I'll connect to our log streaming service, and whenever I hit the site, I'll actually see that request coming in.
And you can also see these in the portal as well. So it's a very productive experience. And you can just hit the endpoint if you go into Kudu.
Yep.
There's a link there as well. And Kudu is also known as the advanced tools. It's basically the engine that runs all your deployments, and it has a bunch of great features where you can see your environment variables, you can see what processes are running, you can kill processes, you can get a memory dump. It's a very feature-rich service, because even though you're not running your own VM, you still need to be able to see what your application is doing, and that's what Kudu is designed to do.
Exactly. So let's give it this couple of seconds. Again, let's just make sure that's there.
I think you're not. There you go.
Yep. Okay, here we go. It tells me, and I can go and see it's like everything about my browser. It's basically all the IIS logs that being dumped into that window. Okay.
Cool. Well, what else can we do?
So actually right now we'll switch to Linux. So we did everything on Windows VMs, and we'll just go do the same thing, well, slightly less, on Linux, but the exact same commands can be used on Linux. You can create slots, you can hook it to GitHub, you can swap, check the logs and everything.
So we don't have to learn any new commands to use a different kind of app service. How many people here are familiar with web apps running on Linux? Right, show of hands? Oh, only a few. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. It's a really fantastic feature. It's kind of bringing the container model into a PaaS model. It's kind of marrying these two concepts. So a lot of runtime stacks don't work very well on Windows. For instance, PHP and Python, a lot of these, they use frameworks that have been designed to work on Linux. And so they require some native dependencies that just aren't on Windows. So that was one of the main reasons that we found that we needed to support Linux. And we have a few different ways in which we support Linux. One is that you can use a built-in container. So we have several built-in containers that we maintain and we patch, and so you don't have to even think about that. The same way we patch Windows for you on App Service. All you do is you deploy your code the same way you would with App Service, using the CLI, using Visual Studio, using FTP, using Kudu, same exact thing. Or what we'll show in a minute is You can use custom containers, meaning you can customize the OS entirely. You can install your own packages. You can install whatever native dependencies you want, and everything will work, but you still get this nice experience of the front ends being hosted for you in this multi-tenant environment, geo-distributed for you, a lot of app service plans to choose from. So you get all those productivity benefits along with those container benefits.
Exactly. So I already created a resource group, and I'm just creating a plan. So to say how, like, to basically say that I want a Linux plan, just add -- is -Linux, and that will create a Linux app service plan. And
if you haven't tried this out at all, you can go in the portal, and there's a drop-down where you can pick Windows or Linux. The default is Windows, but you can try out Linux and see how it goes. There's some great tutorials as well. You can get started and see what the experience is like.
So again, it's exactly the same thing, but instead of provisioning Windows VMs, we're provisioning Linux VMs. Again, same thing. You go create a web app, same exact command.
And do I have the same SKUs available to me on Linux?
So for Linux, we only have basic and standard right now, but we will add more later. So.
And what about the VM sizes? Are they
so again, it's
choices?
the same: small, medium, and large. So S1, S2,
Great.
S3.
So you have the same choices. It's just the SKUs that give you what features. So the way to think about app service plans is that the SKU tells you what kind of features you get. So it's kind of like a SKU of Windows or Office. You want basic, you want student, professional, enterprise. And the size gives you how much CPU and memory. So if you want basic 1, it'll give you 1 core with, I think, 1.75 gigabytes of memory. If you get B2, you get more cores and more memory, and so on.
Okay. And again, I forgot one. So for this app, I'll actually go with a Node 6.1 version, and I can specify that in my create. For Linux, it's actually slightly different. You have to specify which runtime stack that you want.
So basically, you're choosing your container. You're choosing your operating system.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And on Windows, we choose it for you with some particular built-in runtime stacks. On Linux, you get a lot more choices.
Exactly. So just for the sake of time, I'm not going to continue with the Linux one, the built-in, but it's exactly the same commands. You can do logging, you can enable logging, and all this swap, change app service plan type, and everything. What I'm going to do is I'll actually switch and create a web app that's web app for containers. So I'll go and create a web app, and actually in my create command, I'll say, go get me that container from Docker Hub, and basically we'll browse to that app. So it's exactly the same command, but I'll just change this.
And if you're not familiar with containers, it's basically a way of describing when you create a container using a tool like Docker, you describe your application in terms of what kind of software you want installed on it. And then you use the Docker tools that builds an image of that container. And you can put it on Docker Hub, which is just a repository for storing these images. It has kind of similar concepts as GitHub, where you have tags, you have a Docker image you can connect to. Yep. So here's a Docker container that I created.
That Donna created. I just specify -I, and I'll specify which version it is. So
you have versioning within Docker as well, where you have another version of your application, which might have new requirements of software that you want to install. So that's why you would have a new image. So containers are really powerful if you have existing applications that you want to convert. By the way, you don't have to use Linux containers. You could have Windows. You could run Windows in a container.
Actually, no. So the web app of containers right now is only Linux containers, but who knows? Maybe in the future.
If we want to run Windows containers, what service would we use for that?
You will have to use Service Fabric.
Service Fabric. Yeah. So we have a lot of options for you depending on what kind of container options you want. Sorry, the point that I wanted to make was you can run applications that run on Windows or on a Mac. So for instance, if you want to run .NET Core applications, so this application is actually a .NET Core application. Sorry for the brain freeze there. This application I developed on Windows, but I created a Linux container, and because it runs on .NET Core, I had the same execution environment when I ran locally or not. I could F5 run on my Windows machine, or I could F5 and run on a Linux container on my local machine using Docker.
So right now I'm browsing to that app. What's happening right now is the platform itself is downloading the Docker image, and it's this one, I think, almost 200 megabytes.
Yes.
So it takes some time, but if the subsequent request, we don't download that. And if you have any changes to your container, we actually download only the changes that happened, like so only the layers that changed. So there's the app, and just again, for the sake of time.
Can I show it? Can I show it in action real quick?
Actually, I want to give you more time for your functions.
There we go. So
quickly,
this site, though, you can also go to, if you use Azure Functions, it'll visualize all the different bindings that you have in your application. Now, the reason it's hosted on Linux is because I'm using some features that are blocked by the App Service Sandbox, because there's certain GDI APIs that are unsafe, so we block those. And this is using, the rendering library it's using is kind of old, and it's using some really old APIs that happen to be blocked. So I didn't have to change my code, though. I just made it in a container, and put it on web apps on Linux. So I still have the same productive experience, even though my application had different requirements for the native libraries that it was using.
Yeah, so quickly, so we have CI/CD for GitHub, but we also have CI/CD for containers. If I already own the container, like Docker Hub page, I can go and get the webhook URL, and I can go and basically configure my Docker Hub repo, so that whenever there's a new version, I can just go, the platform will go and pull that image and serve the new image. And also, again, our recipe to success, please do that on a slot. And whenever you know that these are the changes that you want to take to production, you swap.
Great. So basically, in GitHub, you're going to push new code. In Docker Hub, you're going to be pushing a new image. And if you push it on the same tag, they basically have this webhook support.
Yeah, so to enable CD, it's under deployment container config, and basically -E enable CI/CD. So we'll go set up an app setting and give you back the webhook to go and configure your Docker Hub with. So that's the webhook. And whenever you have a new change, we'll basically go pull the new image, actually pull the difference of the images, and serve the new request. That said, I'll actually hand it over to Donna to talk about functions.
I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Can I use deployment slots with Linux? It seems like if this image takes a long time to download, it would be pretty important to use a deployment slot.
Again, basic, we don't offer deployment slots, but in standard, we offer up to 5 deployment slots.
Right, so it's basically the same as, or similar model as an app service.
Yeah. So
all right, so now let's talk about functions. So Azure Functions is actually built on App Service. We use the same underlying compute in apps. The compute that Functions runs on is the same as in App Service. It's just that there's a special SKU that you can only use on Functions that's called the consumption SKU. That's the thing that scales you out automatically. But you can also run functions on a dedicated plan, which is just an app service plan, which means you can do all those same commands and specify, premium or an app service environment or what have you. About 25% of our customers use a dedicated plan.
So I actually have a question for you, Donna. So,
yes.
For the dedicated plan, can I do functions on Linux?
That's a really good question. So functions on Linux is something we're working on because we are porting the Azure Functions core tools to Linux. So you can actually take the core tools and manually run it on Linux today if you wanted to. And I'm going to show you a demo of the core tools running on a Mac. Now, the core tools are a little different from the AZ CLI. The core tools are about developing functions and running them locally. So that's why it's a different tool. There are some commands, though, that might make sense to merge with the AZ CLI, where, for instance, you might want to have the commands for publishing a function app to be in the regular AZ CLI. So right now you use 2 different tools, but they have a very similar structure. So Functions Core Tools is about the so-called inner loop of development, whereas the AZ tools are mainly the outer loop. You want to provision resources. You want to manage those resources, the things that you usually do in the Azure portal. And what we've done this week, we've just announced, is that we've ported the core tools to .NET Core. So that means that you can run these commands on a Mac, and everything works exactly the same as before in terms of the interface with the CLI.
That's great.
So here I am on my Mac. And first what I'm going to show you is how to create a new functions project. So let's create a new directory. And what we'll do is we'll just do, we'll run func. So func is the function CLI. You can get it from Node. Have the URL, so you do npm install -g azure-functions core-tools at core. That's how you get the new branch. It's called core because we've ported it to .NET Core. Now you have several commands here. You can see what runtime version you're running because this core tools is packaging the Azure Functions runtime along with it in order to F5 and run your functions. So there's a lot of commands you can do. You can log into Azure, which I've already done. You can run the functions runtime. But I have a function app I've already created here, which is a simple HTTP trigger. So let's just open this up in Visual Studio Code. And actually, let me just show you if your first time with functions, you can use the CLI as well. So you can do func-init, which will create a new functions folder. It adds file host JSON is where you can customize some behavior of the functions runtime and your settings, like your application settings, what resources you're connecting to. So now you can say func new, and you'll see a bunch of templates. So you can choose a language, and we have right now, because we've ported this to .NET Core, we don't have all of our languages available. So we don't have Python or PowerShell available yet, but we will. So let's choose JavaScript, and let's pick HTTP trigger. Again, we have less templates than we would in the full environment. If you see here and we say func host start, we have an HTTP trigger that we wrote in JavaScript, and we have a URL here. So if I take this URL and I put it into Chrome and I say ignite, it takes a query string, name equals ignite, and I can see that I have my Hello World API. Now I have that same API that's written in C#, and I have it here, it's open in Visual Studio Code. So now what I can do is in this session, in this terminal window, what I will do is I will build the project. So I could build this in Visual Studio Code or just in the command line. So I just do .NET build, .NET publish to actually put all my assemblies together. But like you could configure a build task and do this right from Visual Studio Code. And then I'm going to just go into that bin folder and run func host start. Now I'm debugging a C# function. I'm running a C# function. I can attach a debugger. And I'm going to quit this one because they're both trying to listen on the same port. So that won't work. You can override what port it's listening on. By default, it is 7071. You can see here I have the URL of my function. But let's see here, name equals C#. So now we have hello C, and I didn't escape it. So I'll say ignite again. So that's how you can run locally. Now let's see how you can debug. So let's go to the debug window. We'll just say .NET Core attach, because look, the host is still running. And we just pick the Azure Functions CLI, and I hope it's this process, because I had two of them running. Seems to be the right one. And we hit the breakpoint. And so let's just change the value of the query that we got, which was value.first. So we go into value. And we have ignite in here. So let's just add a bunch of exclamation points, because that's the easiest way to change this value. Oh, did I pick a? I picked a read-only collection. A read-only collection. Let's change that to false. Well, it's read-only, so it won't even let me make it non-read-only. I should have picked a better example. When I do this sample on non.NET Core, we have different types that we get. So we get to change the value. So let me go into the request, actually. Let's run this again. So it says this does work, but I just chose the wrong place to try to change the value. So now I'm going to go into the request, and let's go into the content, and let's get the query. Here we go. You can see I'm a Visual Studio person rather than a Visual Studio Code person. Here we go, query string. Query string, let's change this. I think I'm changing another read-only value. I did it again. So you get the idea, though. If you pick something that's, you try to change a value with something that's not read-only, it will work. But then you can change what you get in your output window. So I had a session yesterday where I changed, my co-presenter actually did the demo and did it more correctly than I did. And he changed the value of the query string and a value in the code, and everything worked correctly. So because here I'm not doing an assignment to any local, so that's why I can't change the value, of course. So that's how you can build. Now, once you're happy with everything, you can publish. Now, you can use CI/CD like Ahmed showed, or you can use the functions core tool. So here, we can, just from here, do func host publish. So if we say func Azure, we see all the Azure commands. We say func Azure function app. And there's a few more commands. So you can turn on the Git repo and publish directly to the Git repo. You get a Git repo for your function app or your app service. Or we can just say Azure function app publish, and I have function app is called, if I go to the portal, I can see it here. It is called Donna AZ CLI. You can also list all of them here. And I'm going to just publish my app settings, but I could publish the whole site content if I wanted to. And it'll see if I have the values of the app settings that I have locally, if they differ from what I have in Azure, I can say whether or not I want to set those values. So that's how you can do the whole inner loop of your development, including publishing to Azure using the Azure Functions core tools. And since it's nearly the end of Ignite, we have only one more app service session, but we have a ton of them. We had over 10, I think, this week.
Yeah, there's almost 6 serverless and almost 7 app service related.
So there's a ton of great content on Ignite, which the videos are usually available a week later, so we definitely should check those out. Just search for either serverless or app service, and you can see all these great sessions. The one later today is going to show you how you can create a web backend in a serverless model and connecting to APIs that are hosted on a consumption plan. So there's a ton of resources available online. We just kind of scratched the surface of what you can do.
So if you need any command, if you have any feedback, you can tweet to me, send to me, or send an email to me or Donna. Again, there's a bunch of aka.ms for all the commands, the reference guide for them. Also, there's the Func Crossplat tools to download and have the blog post talking about everything that Donna did. There's also, you can go to Try App Service. You can try all that for free without any credit cards, and you can try everything from there. Also, if you have any general feedback about app service in general, you can go to aka.ms/webappfeedback. Just put that there. We actually look at it almost daily, and a lot of our features actually come from there.
Yeah, so it's your opportunity to drive the product. So if there's something you really want, then that's the place to go.
Exactly, and tell every one of your coworkers to go and upvote it. So,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, that said, please evaluate this session, and yeah, if anyone have questions, we have some swag for questions.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes. So we have a bunch of great stuff. We have these little footballs that have app service on them, and we have little clouds with the apps with the functions logo. Yeah. So you can just please come up to a microphone, and just by asking a question, it doesn't even have to be a good question. We will give you a piece of swag.
So I'll speak loudly. So obviously, app service is cool. App service environment.
Oops.
Yes.
A lot of differences in what you presented.
Yeah.
Your Git deployment stuff, not very easy, right?
So it really.
So the question was, if you want to do the same stuff in app service environment, how does it differ? The Git deployment is a bit different.
Yeah. So app service environments, because it has a different domain, and if it will even be harder if you have an ILBAS, where you actually it's completely
right. An ILBAS is basically completely isolated. It has it's not even internet addressable, only addressable from the VNet that it's in.
Yeah, we have heard that comment a lot. Unfortunately, the ILBAS is as locked as you want it to be locked. So Right now, everything is run inside your ACE. So the Kudu site that basically does all the webhooks to GitHub also runs inside your ACE. So
I guess the deployment, yes, is an issue. All the other stuff that you've demonstrated here will work.
Yes, so everything.
Yes, that's the plan. Creation and configuration of an ACE. We're planning to do that in PowerShell as a first go, but then if there's need to do it in CLI, we'll do it in CLI. But all these commands actually should work on ACE. So
They do
right
work.
now,
So-
you just point to the resource group and the plan that you want to create the app into, and that should
You
work.
just have to, currently, you just have to go into the portal to create the app service plans in your
And
app
yours.
service environment. But then in the future, that'll also be in the CLI itself. Another option for when you want to connect to GitHub with an app service environment and you want to do continuous integration is to use VSTS and use VSTS to deploy. So that's another option that actually gives you a lot more features as well.
Okay.
Maybe you're better at throwing. You can throw him
Yes.
the ball.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Ahmed's way better.
Okay. Wrong person. Nice. Yes.
Comment on the same question.
Yeah.
So you could kind of get around the basic problem if you had a Git server that's outside. You can have a repo and have a local, choose a local Git storage and take that version and add that as a second version on your local repo and then just switch those.
Okay.
Yeah, so the suggestion was you could use local Git and then push to that,
Yeah.
and have two remotes set up on your local machine, and then everything would just work.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
You still get a ball.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yes.
I have kind of a general question. It seems like there's pretty good technologies you could use to do anything. There's the CLI, PowerShell, and the ARM.
Yeah.
Where do you guys spend most of your time? And like, is there certain scenarios that you run over the edge?
So the question is, do you use? There's three commands: CLI, PowerShell,
Shell
and
and
ARM.
ARM.
How do you pick which one to use?
So ARM is basically, well, it's the REST APIs. It's just like the building foundation. Everything you're seeing here is actually at the end of the day translates to ARM commands, REST APIs. We try to spend most of our time right now into CLI because that's historically where we lagged. We had a lot of coverage in PowerShell, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to invest in PowerShell.
Right. PowerShell
So,
is still very popular.
Our motive and our goal is to have parity between PowerShell and CLI and the portal. So basically anything you can do in the three of them as easy as possible. So
Right. And now in terms of what you should use a CLI like PowerShell or the AZ CLI or an ARM template? It really is up to you and whether or not what you're using suits your needs. Now an ARM template is very declarative and it also does diffs between resources. So if let's say you add a new resource into a resource group, you just go change your template and the ARM engine just figures out that that's what you did. Whereas if you were to do that, if you had a script where you were say creating a storage account and you try to create the same storage account, it will just fail. So if you need something declarative, then Azure Resource Manager is a good fit. That said, it can be a little harder to use because you're basically defining your whole application in a particular manner. I strongly recommend using the Visual Studio tools for authoring ARM templates. It makes it a lot easier. The other thing you can do with an ARM template is you can put it in a GitHub repo, you can do a deploy to Azure button. So personally, I write a lot of ARM templates because I write a lot of samples. But it just really depends on what you're trying to do. The CLI commands are certainly a lot easier to get started with. You can create really quickly, and it's just like one line as opposed to an ARM template, which is much bigger. Yeah. Now, you can also export ARM templates from the portal. It's in preview, so you might not have the same fidelity. So that's another thing to consider.
yeah, still get the ball. Oh, sorry.
If you're going from, like,
Yeah.
if you want out any ARM, then you can go just to Resource Manager. You need in the portal for this? Just mentioned you can export from.
So if you already created a resource and you wanted to create an ARM template to recreate that same resource in the same exact way, then you can go into the portal and there's a command to export ARM template.
Yeah.
But it's still in preview because it's not, it's actually recreating an ARM template. It's not, even if you use an ARM template to deploy, you'd have to save it somewhere. You could save it when you deploy, but what that's doing is looking at your resources and generating an ARM template that would have created that. So that's why it's still in preview.
Yeah, the other thing is you can go to resources.azure.com. It actually shows you like all your resources and basically the ARM template that declares
Exactly.
it.
And so if you're ever curious about how to use an API, it's actually, personally I always go in there to see what the ARM API is because even for an ARM template, you can see all the settings right there. So
Exactly.
it's a really useful site. You can get to it from the web app resource plate, or you can just go to resources.azure.com.
Yeah. So. Oh.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm doing great. Sorry.
So there's a lot of commands to say copy or upload a certain file to a blog store.
Mhm.
But there's a missing functionality for async kind of behavior, which, like, if you look at AWS sync, if you're working with large file sets, it's a lot easier if it's just doing the sync, which just
Right.
does the deltas.
Right. So this is right. Right. So the comment really is about or the feedback about the Azure storage. I'm sorry, I'm repeating the questions. It's on the recording. The storage commands will upload will upload synchronously, and so it would be really nice if they could upload asynchronously. So we don't work on that part, but we will pass on that feedback. So.
Not asynchronously, I mean, like async behavior, like async.
Oh, rsync. I'm sorry, where you actually do a diff. So you're asking for a diff functionality. So, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, and we'll pass on this feedback to the team.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Here we got one. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
Pass parameter files, so those aren't inputs to the CLI?
Yes, you can. So the question is, can you pass parameters in? Yes. So I think for deploying an ARM template, can you deploy an ARM template for the AZ CLI?
yes. So there
Yes.
actually are commands to just pass on templates.
And you can pass the parameter file along with it?
I'm not sure.
I think you can. Yes.
Okay,
In PowerShell
good.
you can, and in the AZ CLI it
Okay,
sounds like.
good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of functionality that's exposed. I think our session time is
Yeah,
over, so
our
let's
time
take
is over.
questions at the end.
Yeah, so-
thank you very much, and thank you for attending the session, and we're happy to answer more questions.
Thanks a lot. And we'll be in our booth, and we also have some swag, some T-shirts, and we have more swag downstairs. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.